How's everybody? It's wonderful to see you this morning, and I want to make a few very important announcements that we're very happy to make. But before that, I want to say how proud I am of the district's 30,000 employees who are working hard every day to deliver services, from going to teach our children at school, to fixing our roadways, to picking up our trash, to make sure that we're working with people with disabilities in our community to make sure that they have all of our services, to working with small businesses. During this Small Business Week, we paused to celebrate to make sure that small businesses can open in this city and hire DC residents. We're also grateful for our staff who runs every day or whenever they're called to emergencies to help people who may suffer from a medical emergency on our streets, or people who may have a fire where they live, just like what happened in our community this past week, where our brave firefighters ran into a building where there was a fire, up 9 flights of steps to put out that fire. And unfortunately, we lost one of our brave heroes, Lieutenant Kevin McCrae. And Lieutenant McCrae was a 24-year veteran of the fire department. He was recruited into the fire department from the 11th grade, where he became a member of a cadet class and served with distinction the fire department for 24 years. Lieutenant McCrae was the 100th firefighter in the history of our force who died in the line of duty. And I would like to pause for a moment in memory of Lieutenant Kevin McCrae and in prayer for his wonderful family. Thank you. And now we move on to recognize, and I just want to speak for our entire administration, the City Administrator Rashad Young, who is preparing, or he may already be giving testimony on the Budget Support Act in front of the Committee of the Whole, the Deputy City Administrator, Kevin DONAHUE, as well as Steve Walker, who is responsible for talent and appointments in the Mayor's office. And so during the transition, we promised to bring the best and the brightest to deliver a fresh start for district residents. And over the last 126 days, we have assembled a great team to do exactly that. So I first want to announce, and if Melinda Bolling would join me at the podium. I would like to announce the appointment of Melinda Bolling as the Director of the Consumer and Regulatory Affairs Agency. Let's give Melinda a big round of applause. I asked Melinda to serve as DCRA's interim director since January, where she's done an outstanding job. Prior to her service as interim director, Melinda served as DCRA's general counsel, where she managed the legal staff. Melinda lives in Ward 7. So congratulations, Melinda. Thank you. Would Raymond Davidson please join me at the podium? Raymond Davidson is being appointed as the Director of the Child and Family Services Agency. Raymond has served as Interim Director of CFSA since January, when our Deputy Mayor Brenda Donald accepted the appointment as Deputy Mayor. He will continue to direct the city's first response to reports of child abuse and neglect, and oversee services that help at-risk children and their families. Raymond has over 25 years of supervisory, management, and executive experience, with a specialty in human resources in both the public and private sectors. Most recently, Raymond served as a deputy when Brenda was the Director of Child and Family Services. Please join me in congratulating Raymond Davidson. Would George Shooter please join me at the podium? Today, I am announcing the appointment of the Chief Procurement Officer for the District of Columbia, who will be the Director of the Office of Contracting and Procurement. George currently serves as the Chief Financial Officer for TechnoServe, Inc., an international nonprofit providing business solutions to poverty. Prior to joining TechnoServe, George was Grant Thornton's Global Public Sector Executive Director in the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia, where he opened regional operations in Dubai's International Financial Center and developed offices in Iraq. George has also served as the one of a procurement professional, if I remember correctly, for the Marine Corps and for the Peace Corps. So George has decades of experience in directing procurement operations for multinational organizations, and we are lucky to have George accept this appointment. Congratulations, George. You're welcome. Would Alexis Taylor please join me at the podium? Alexis will serve as the Director of the Office of Disability Rights, a role she has also held in an interim capacity since the beginning of the year. Previously, Alexis was General Counsel for the Office of the DC Office of Human Rights. As General Counsel, she provided training on various local civil rights laws, including the DC Human Rights Act, the Parental Leave Act, and the Language Access Act. Ms. Taylor has also provided training on corresponding federal laws, including Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Ms. Taylor has extensive experience advocating for the rights of people with disabilities in our city and a distinguished legal career in the District of Columbia government. Ms. Taylor lives in Ward 5, I believe. Congratulations. Congratulations. So we are very happy to announce these appointments. I know that you will have the opportunity to ask the directors questions and ask them a lot of questions, work them extremely hard, and we are excited to welcome them to the Bowser administration. So with that, we're happy to take any questions. Yes. Yes, that is possible.
And my question is Mr. Davidson, who's going to Child and Family Services, in your remarks you indicated that he was a former Deputy Director of CFSA. For what period of time?
Brenda, would you be willing to, first I want to make sure I get your title exactly right and talk about the period of appointment.
Certainly. Yes. Mr. Davidson was at CFSA under my directorship. He had actually preceded me by a couple of years, but he was deputy for administration, which was over the contracts, HR, facilities, and some other services.
Right,
So.
what was your start date?
I started with the agency in 2008, November 2008.
November 2008.
And my last question was, Mr. Shooter lives in the District of Columbia, and if so, where?
Mr. Shooter lives in Ward 6. Yes, sir.
Mr. Shooter, there are concerns by black businesses and black business people in the district that the district government is not as responsive as it has been in the past in terms of contracting and minority contracts. I would just like to know, is Mr. Shooter committed to, of course, the local small business disadvantage, but will he focus on African-American businesses in terms of city contracts?
Okay, I'm going to ask George to come up, but I also, before he responds, I want to explain that during our interview process, not only with the Office of Contracting and Procurement, but with other agencies that have procurement responsibilities, I explained what the vision of the Bowser administration is. And that's first and foremost that we have open and transparent procurement practices that follow the law, and that we also look for ways to use our procurement power to reach other goals that we have in the District of Columbia. And that includes hiring DC residents, and that includes working with small and local businesses. And so that is a question that I put to everybody who has any responsibility for procurement in the District of Columbia. I also say, though, that any programs that we put in place to reach those ends have to be beyond reproach. And so part of the job of the new procurement director is to look at the practices that we have in place and to recommend any changes needed. But let you hear from George.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm absolutely looking forward to working with the mayor and improving our procurement services, improving our public services. I'm really looking forward as well to using my experience in the community that we live to improve procurement and contracting in the district. Looking forward to working with the agency directors, with the mayor, with the council as well, and understanding the challenges that we have and improving the transparency in general.
And so just to add to that, part of my focus is making sure we're putting more accountability in the procurement process. You're not surprised that over several audits, there have been findings of procurement deficiencies in a lot of different agencies. And so I've tasked the interim director, for example, and George will take this on, at developing an accountability body within the executive, where when there are procurement mistakes, that we evaluate those mistakes immediately and determine the root cause of those mistakes. We are also very pleased to be continuing a council initiative that has focused on training procurement professionals. And I think we're in the first kind of cohort of that training. We're taking lessons learned from that training so that procurement professionals know the law, they know contract management issues, and they know what to do if they find a problem. Lastly, I'll say this. I wanted to make sure that all of our new directors, people who are new to government and coming into the Bowser administration, also have a training around procurement issues, which will be happening in the next several weeks. We will also make that those are for executive appointees, and so everybody who's new is going to have it. And then I'm going to suggest strongly that everybody who's not new get a refresher. That's good, right, Chief? Yes, Sam.
Mayor, 2 days ago when you announced the death of Lieutenant McCrae, you said that you were going to be, working on something so the public could help his family. Have you come up with anything yet? Or?
Yes, I believe that we made that information available. Can somebody provide me the information to repeat? I did put it out on my social media, Sam, and before we're done, I'll repeat it again. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, Chief Mayor said creating body creating body camera footage, much like other police evidence. And she said that the mayor and the chief could decide to release video in situations that are a matter of great public interest and/or in cases of exceptional circumstances in which releasing the video would serve the public's interest. And it doesn't seem like the public's interest and the police department's interests would always necessarily align. And so in what process would you use to decide what's of great public interest?
Well, thank you for that question, Abigail, and I'll invite the chief to come up to add to what I'm about to say. But what is significantly important to us and what we intended to convey to the council yesterday is that police body-worn cameras increase accountability for police officers immediately. And that's why we made the very significant step to put in our budget proposal $5.1 million to purchase 2,800 body-worn cameras for our force. We also recognize that the technology is changing fast, and that we need to come up with a robust set of rules about all of the procedures related to body-worn cameras. And so what our recommendation to the council will be is to approve our budget request so that we can put in line the procurement of those body-worn cameras. We're also going to suggest that that program not go into effect until we have agreed on the set of rules and regulations. My administration will be prepared to offer a set of regulations. I understand that the council may choose to offer a change to the law to get to those rules and regulations. I don't think that either of us are ready to do it by the time we make a vote on the budget. So our suggestion would be to approve those funds with the caveat in the budget that the program could not go into place until the council has either approved regulations or changed the law.
Chief, and would the Attorney General be involved?
I don't want to
In
speculate
terms of
on what, in consultation with all, stakeholder groups, and I think we heard a very robust discussion from a number of stakeholder groups yesterday, so I don't know what the final set of recommendations will be. It may be something entirely different from what was discussed at the hearing yesterday. Yes. Bob.
Mayor Bowser, hello?
Yes.
You said that recently that Washington was the only place for the Washington football team to have its stadium. But you've also said in the past that you thought that the name of the team should be changed. So is changing the name of the team a condition for having the team potentially have a new stadium here?
Well, I did say that I thought that RFK was the best place for the Washington Redskins to locate, and I think that team officials have said as much. They have, in fact, tried to replicate RFK Stadium in their designs for a future stadium, including how the seats bounce. So we also know that the infrastructure is there and can accommodate fans. So we have. We are exploring, as I expect everybody thinks I would, the best use for those parcels. Our soccer team is going to be leaving that stadium, and we're going to have a big empty stadium in a couple of years. The Events DC has, for the last, I think, at least year, been evaluating scenarios for the use of those parcels. And as a council member, I think I signed on to a resolution, and I agree with so many people who think that the time has come to evaluate the name. I think having a discussion about the team returning to Washington is the first thing that I want to do as it relates to that issue. Yes, Mark.
Can I follow up on that? One question, why do you think the name should be changed?
It's offensive to many people.
And then can I just follow up and ask them, why do you continue to use it?
I don't.
You just did.
I may have slipped and used it. Yes.
And then can I ask you, have you had talks with anyone at the team, or is anyone from the district government, Councilmember Evans, or anyone, are there actually talks underway? How far along are you?
We've reached out to the team.
Did they respond?
Yes.
And so has there been a meeting?
We've reached out to the team. That's as far as it's gone.
Have they responded?
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, my question is for Ms. Alexis Taylor.
Yes.
I was wondering if she could briefly describe her vision for how the district can continue to promote the rights of people with disabilities.
Absolutely, Alexis.
Thank you, Kaylee. It's always nice when your staff member puts you on the spot. No, I am so pleased to continue in the role as Director of the Office of Disability Rights. And as some of you know, we're not a part of the Office of Disability Services. What we actually do is determine the compliance with the ADA for all of district government. So whatever agency you're in, we're going to make certain that your services, your funds, your buildings are in compliance with the law. So my vision is to ascertain that all district agencies are accessible to persons with disabilities and to make certain that the process is more streamlined than what it already is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, Ms. Brazil.
I want to ask another question of Mr. Shooter.
It's a microphone for you.
I want to ask another question of Mr. Shooter. He's being appointed the district's Chief Procurement Officer. The intent of the underlying legislation is for that to be a term appointment of 5 years. When you came into office, you asked for and received the resignation of the then head of the Office of Contracts and Procurement, Mr. Stanton, and he has had at least a year left in his term. So is Mr. Shooter being appointed to a full 5-year term, or is he just being appointed to fulfill Mr. Stanton's remaining year in his term?
Our expectation was that he would be appointed to a full term.
And to follow up, in the District of Columbia government, contracting and procurement has been the Achilles heel of many a mayor in the district. Has Mr. Shooter, given his background from essentially the private sector most recently, been fully briefed as regards the issues that have been troubling the District of Columbia for many, many, many years regarding contracting and procurement, many of which James has just enunciated?
Yes, and I think that what I would point to and probably direct the director's attention to first are the Yellow Book findings from our most recent audit, and findings that affect a good number of our agencies. So that is where we started the discussion about deficiencies at OCP. Yes, ma'am. Sure, I'm going to ask Kevin Donahue to come up and brief everybody as to where we are with Corizon. I think that you recognize that we moved an emergency piece of legislation just this past Tuesday that would permit, that would allow us to continue the health care services at the jail in a sole source agreement with Unity. I think the cost of which is about $2.5 million additional dollars. So I'm going to have Kevin come up and talk to you about the status.
With respect to the contract for health services at the DC jail, the most important thing that we're focusing on is that health care must continue, and inmates of the DC jail still need to receive quality health care. So after the council vote, essentially the only option that we have is to extend as a sole source contract the Unity agreement for a short period of time. So the emergency legislation that was put into play will be to extend it through the summer. Then we'll probably have to extend it once again to cover the amount of time it would take to do a competitive bid, which is probably around a year after that.
Yes, sir. Congratulations. I hear you're going to the Northwest Current. We're looking forward to reading your stories.
Earlier this week, residents from Palisades and Georgetown met to have a town hall with Congresswoman Norton about airplane noise. Is this something your office has looked into, and if so, what are you prepared to do about that?
We haven't been engaged into that discussion at this point. There's a limited local role in that, but my office, our regional affairs office, of course, is in constant contact with the Congresswoman's office, and we will get her office to download the results of that meeting and see where we can be helpful. We would, of course, also look to Council Member Che to let us know if she thinks that there's something that we need to be involved in there. I don't believe she has to this point. At this point, yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I wanted to ask about the budget. Some of the council members don't seem particularly enthusiastic about raising the sales tax. Could you tell us a bit about why that's needed, or do you need it?
Well, it's part of our entire budget package. As you know, Abigail, we delivered a balanced budget to the council several weeks ago that funded key priorities, not just of mine, but of vast majority of Washingtonians. And one thing that's included in this budget that hasn't been included in past budgets is a significant down payment on ending homelessness in the district that we believe is a down payment on the Interagency Council's recent plan. So that is a key priority. In addition, this budget commits to $100 million in investment for affordable housing for the Housing Production Trust Fund, which this council just last year unanimously said that $100 million every single year for the Housing Production Trust Fund was a key initiative. Well, you may remember that we had to close a $190 million budget gap. So when you have more expenses than you have revenue coming in, you have to figure out a way to close it. Now, what we did is we went through every agency and we asked every agency to look for savings and to make cuts. And so I asked the agency directors for 5 to 8% cuts. And every cluster in the government contributed to closing that gap. There were also some very important initiatives, new initiatives, so $190 million closing the gap. So nothing happens new there. We just have to close the gap. But people were also very committed to new initiatives, including $100 million guaranteed in the Housing Production Trust Fund. That's not spread around housing programs. So be mindful of not looking to every little housing thing, but $100 million in the Housing Production Trust Fund. People were committed. We've heard the council moved to the committee of the whole, so every council member could be involved in the Interagency Council on Homelessness. The council has made, like we have, ending homelessness a priority. So we committed to this down payment on the plan to end homelessness. We've also made, as a number of council members highlighted, an investment in public transit, investment in Metro, and the Metro board, which I supported through Jack Evans, said they didn't want to raise fares and they didn't want to cut services at Metro. Yet, Metro asked us for an additional $30 million. So that's a new, if you will, expense that's added on top of closing the $190 million budget gap. It was also very important to us that we stayed focused on a population in our city that's been left behind and that has been disengaged from school or from work. And we're committed to 1,000 jobs for 22 to 24-year-olds, which we're pleased that we will kick off this summer. We're also very committed. I had the pleasure of hosting a town hall with young people yesterday, and one of the initiatives that I was proud to initiate as a council member and look to expand as mayor is Kids Ride Free. We asked the young people how many people took advantage of Kids Ride Free on the bus and what impact it had on their lives. And nearly 100% of them raised their hands to say that Kids Ride Free on the bus has helped them get back and forth to school. I then asked them how many people would be able to take advantage of it if it was on rail. And again, almost 100% of people's hands went up. Keep in mind that some of our kids are traveling from Ward 7 to Duke Ellington every day. To do it on the bus, it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours. Some of our kids are traveling across town, and it's our kids where the schools are struggling the most. have the longest commutes. And so we really need to look carefully at making sure they have access to safe and reliable transit. And I was very proud, and this also follows up on the recommendation of the School Boundary Realignment Committee to include rail transportation in the Kids Ride Free program. Yes, Jonathan.
Mayor Bowser, what sort of private sector interest did you find there was in the Franklin School? And can you make that interest or those responses public?
I actually haven't been briefed on any on where we are with that. The deputy mayor, I'm going to invite the deputy mayor to come up and talk to you about where we are in that process.
Thank you. Yes, I think that we generally were happy with the responses that we got. We are still looking at those responses, obviously, to make sure that they are compliant with the requirements that are in our solicitation. But I think, especially in my history with thinking about some of the previous interests we've got, I think we're very happy with the responses that we got thus far. I think once we sort of check to make sure that we've got, that we've sort of checked against the requirements of solicitation, I think we're going to try to make as much information public as we can.
Yes, Mark.
Just kind of a housekeeping, this is one of your first real in-depth press conferences, which we certainly appreciate. Previous mayors have had different schedules for these. Can you give us any indication of how often we might have this kind of an opportunity going forward with you?
Well, we try to be available to you every single day. So I want to make that clear that we're out in the community where I try to make it. And I appreciate your reaching out to LaToya, I think in most cases, to let her know if you're coming, and we try to accommodate in most cases. And so I know that people like to be in this room, and I'm frequently not in the building, somewhere in the community. So we will schedule them as often as possible. But keep in mind that I'm available to the press every single day. And I don't know where Bill Rice went. Where did Bill Rice go? Bill Rice suggested to me the next time I had appointments to make that we do it in G9. And so that's why we're Yes, ma'am. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Andrea Noble.
Okay, Andrea, thank you.
The Public Defender Service had raised some concerns previously about the firing of top officials in the Department of Forensic Sciences, kind of whether that could scare people off from either, applying to those positions or from people who currently work there from reporting other mistakes in the future. So I wanted to know how you plan to proceed with filling those positions and how to manage kind of quality assurance there in the future and making sure people come forward and are comfortable doing so.
Sure. I heard a brief snippet, or I saw a quote, maybe you reported on it, I saw a quote from the public defender like that. I want to be clear that nobody was fired because of one mistake. All right, so let's just be real clear about that we had 2 independent audits conducted, one in which I commissioned that was peer-reviewed, that demonstrated some real serious concerns about the lab and confidence in the lab. So be clear that it's not my style, nor has it been my record to lead or to manage it with fear. But it is my responsibility that a $200 million investment in a lab whose job is so sensitive and is critical to our whole criminal justice system, we have to have confidence in how it operates. So let me say, we posted the top job, I think, immediately after the resignation of the former director, and we've had lots of interest. So it has not in any way deterred interest in the lab. we have a great opportunity with that lab. We have a new building, and I think once we have a new focus on getting things right, we will feel, and then everybody will feel confident in it. So the next director of the lab, including the senior management, should have nothing to fear about our commitment to getting the lab right. And I will say, I think the stakeholders feel the same, that they want to be able to rely on the results of the lab as well. It doesn't serve the public defender or the U.S. attorney to have any questions about the results that come from our lab. Okay. Yes.
Another issue the public defender had raised was that the independent auditors met with the U.S. Attorney's Office who conducted their audit before they actually ended up issuing theirs, so they were concerned that they may have gotten results from the U.S. Attorney's Office, or that it wasn't fully independent because they knew that there could be some of the information in the other audit. So I didn't address that.
Well, people may always have questions, but the accrediting body is who we commissioned. And then we went outside of the accrediting body, went out for peer reviews. So I don't know what the interest would be in the District of Columbia sending a message to the body that accredits the lab that we're not serious about getting it right.
Last question.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You were involved in campaigning for Brandon Todd and LaRuby May, more, some observers have said, than previous mayors have been involved in DC Council campaigns. What do you think you'll be able to accomplish with Ms. May and Mr. Todd in office that you would not have been able to if their opponents had won?
I think that whoever the next Ward 4 or Ward 8 council members may be, my job as mayor is to work with them to make sure that the vision that their constituents have for them is realized. So I'm going to work with the Ward 4 and the Ward 8 council member, period.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.